o'clock of the Wednesday edition of Newsbreak.
And that means here we go again with another classic collection of the best of the broadcasting bloopers from all over the world. Moments when the normally professional presenters suddenly realise things aren't going quite as perfectly as they'd like.
This is the 6 o'clock news. An intensive police search has been mounted for 3 men missing on Port Phillip Bay. Here's Colin Denovan. Oh dear, what have we done? We're reading the wrong news. That's why you haven't got it, lad. I'm sorry. The lead sheet was right, but that's the news from the last lot. We'll start again.
And in that case, let's go right from the top with a station ident.
All day.
Right here on...
If we know who we are, the next task is to go ever so smoothly into the news itself.
Now coming up to 8 o'clock, we're going to go over to IRN for news in a minute. After the news, Skint Video are coming up to have an interview. In fact, they're waiting out there already, and Steve Bunyan's interviewing them. Right now on 963, the time is 8 o'clock, and it's time to go over to IRN for the news.
And keep it up.
Oh, Lawrence has told me to keep speaking. What's wrong with the clock, Lawrence? Has it gone wrong? Clock's wrong. It's not my fault. I'll carry on speaking. I could carry on playing the record, but how much longer have I got to wait? Making me feel I'm right, Wally, here. Am I allowed to put a jingle on, or can I put the news on now? I'll put a jingle on. I've got a whole minute.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. It's great fun, isn't it?
W963.
And once things do start falling apart, there's a delicious tendency for the collapse to continue.
Thank you, Les. On the ground... Oh, sorry, I've given you the wrong jingle there. What I really mean is traffic news, and on the ground we've got Dennis Atwood at the police.
Radio stations usually introduce the news with a suitable bit of newsy music. It's a sensible idea when it works.
I'll take your gardening calls a little bit later on. I do apologise, that's not correct introduction for the news.
It's 10 o'clock. An American couple who lost their...
As any journalist would agree, it's the headlines of a news or current affairs programme that need to grab the listener's attention.
The World at 1, with 40 minutes of news and a comment this Tuesday lunchtime. First, the news headlines.
Once we're safely into the news itself, it's the stories that count, coherently presented in the right order.
No preparation evaluated yet has shown any promise. Bob Simpson asked Professor Zuckerman whether reports that various vaccines are already being tried out were accurate. I'm very sorry, I am told that I've read the wrong thing there. Could you tell me what I am supposed to be reading, please? I'm very sorry, we've got a slight muddle here.
I wonder what a big muddle would sound like.
My first news break, and in the headlines. Lost the headlines.
And that's only the start.
Spokesman for the Trust, Warren Davis, says that their council is asking members to vote against the move, as it would go against the wishes of people who've donated them land.
Bristol City winger Mark Gavin looks certain to return at Mansfield this afternoon.
Obviously, demoralisation within the present theatre staff will lead to further resignations.
Obviously the wrong tape there. I do apologise. We'll get back to that report at 9 o'clock. The 2 most famous whales in the world are swimming to freedom after escaping an icy grave in the Arctic. Crossbank and Bonnet hit the open sea by heading down a channel, which was cut by rescuers through the Alaskan pack ice, which had trapped them for 3 weeks. From the scene, here's Kerry Anderson.
Good morning, this is Tony Lockwood with the top sports news in the West Coast.
We seem to have 1 or 2 gremlins in the works this morning. Never mind, we'll return to that story too.
Never mind. Things could be worse. Lots worse.
Labels warning the sick, the old and pregnant women not to eat soft cheeses now seem the most likely government response to the latest health scare. Officials are discounting talk of banning types of cheese, and the French have been assured there's no danger to their exports of brie and camembert. But food scientists say there's still widespread public confusion about what is and isn't safe. Professor Richard Lacey of Leeds University says a complete government policy at the moment is a shambles.
It is a disgrace. I've never seen such a chaos as with the
I'm extremely sorry that report seems to have been interrupted. We'll try and bring it to you at a later date.
Thursday week? But even if the report is eventually aired, reactions to it are never predictable.
A shock new report says 2 million people a year in Britain are affected by salmonella. But the Bristol-based Egg Producers Association says that doesn't justify Mrs. Curry.
Whoever thought it would? Though that's much better than no comment, whatever the topic.
And it's a busy weekend for the Aces. Tomorrow they travel to Cradley Heath for the first leg of the League Cup final. Could have brought your report then, but unfortunately it didn't say anything.
Which is marginally better than saying the wrong thing, for some.
An investigation has been ordered by the government into the extent of an organism in the country's water supplies.
A mere drop in the ocean compared to the problems you get in the business world.
A buyer has been found for a D-side company, Data Magnetics, which called in receivers 5 weeks ago because of financial crisis. The 165 workers have been kept on, and the company which makes floppy disks has continued to trade.
Isn't it amazing the lengths reporters go to get a bit of sex into a story?
Detectives are particularly interested in the photographs. Some appear to have been taken in a photo booth and others with an instant Polaroid camera.
Which only goes to show it's generally best to engage the brain first, as well as putting it into the right gear.
The trials begin, I'm told, at 1 o'clock, and the gathering is near Speaker's Corner. I might try it myself. If nothing else, I could at least blow up the balls. The English National Opera unveiled its new production of Wagner's Master Singers. As this theatre has a high reputation for its Wagner, the event was eagerly awaited, and the theatre packed, even though it's a 6-hour evening. Good Lord.
Diane Stradling reports.
According to the GLC's health panel, the government's action has cost the city more than £30 million in the last 2 years. They say 18 million was lost last year in cutbacks when London health authorities were forced to axe 2,500 jobs and 39 hospitals were faced with closure. The fight to save many of these is still on.
Little excitement there from Diane Stradling. We'll get her in a better mood later on.
The trouble with newscasters is they seem to be unable to take things easy.
Well, that seems to have set off at a fair old pace. I'm sure it'll slow down, and Carol Ellen will be with us in something like her normal speed.
I doubt it. But come to think of it, what is normal speed? On Radio 3, it's about 4 or 5 words a minute. On American radio...
It's 83 degrees in Dallas at 11 o'clock.
From the world, the nation, and the Texas News Triangle. This is KLIF Hourly News.
United Nations Secretary General Than says there is no justification for arresting Katanga President Chombi in Elizabethville. Successful stationary test of Titan II intercontinental ballistic missile has been made at Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Maybe that was fast way back then, but we've moved on in every sense through 1989.
Monday night, only at San Chevrolet Yugo.
The heartbeat of Arizona.
Dealer retains factory holdback and incentives. Dealer installed options if any at retail. Example 87 Sprint, 60 months at 12.5% APR financing. $129 a month, no down payment plus tax, title, and license with approved credit. Prices include rebates.
The small print of radio. I reckon we could slow down a bit now, don't you? Then we could actually hear what the presenters have to tell us.
This is what they had to say about that. Oh, well, that's not quite what they had to say about that.
But what people say at any speed is not necessarily what they mean, especially when they're talking about our leader and who she leads.
No, I hadn't thought of her as a potential leader of the Conservative Party. Good gracious me, I never thought of her as that.
But then we mustn't take whatever's presented to us at face value, must we?
Finally, police in Telford are hunting for a man dressed as a glamorous woman who hitched up his skirt and flashed his stockings and suspenders at a constable before making off. Despite a chase, the man escaped, but police have issued a description of the suspect, who was wearing a smart pink dress. A spokesman said it may not be an offence for a man to dress in this manner, but he said they were curious about his motives. And the West Midlands weather, rather cloudy this afternoon. A few brighter spells are expected. And the top temperature this afternoon, 12 degrees Celsius.
This is Volume 5 of the Pick of the Broadcasting Bloopers. Virtually all these clips of things going wrong are taken live off air. That's what makes them so delightful. Unscripted, unplanned, and in stark contrast to the normal professionalism of the journalists and presenters. Just occasionally we incorporate what are called outtakes or studio recordings, if they merit inclusion.
News room to radio car. Come in, Barrett.
Yes, hello, John.
Where are you, Barrett?
Hello, John.
Barrett, could you tell me where you are?
Hello, John. Can you hear me?
Barrett, could you tell me where you are? Because we're running up to time now a bit. I mean, where are you?
Hello, John.
Hello, Barrett.
Come to the newsroom.
Hello, Barrett, can you hear me? I can hear you. Hello, Barrett, can you hear me?
Try talking very politely to him.
Barrett, this is the newsroom. I wondered if you could... Can you talk to me? Can you hear... Just say something.
Radio car to the newsroom.
Hello, Barrett. Are we ready to go?
Hello, radio car to the newsroom.
Hello, Barrett, can you hear me?
The radio car, can you hear me, Barrett?
Newsroom to radio car. What the hell did you do? Oh, my God.
We're really going to have to sort things out pretty quick. It's the news in a moment.
Barrett, where have you been? We've been talking to you for the last 20 minutes.
I didn't hear anything. Nothing came through.
Well, you're hearing us now. What's it look like?
There's nothing here. It's all been cleared. I've got to go. I'll go. There's a post office just opposite where it happened. I'll go there and see if I can get somebody out of there. It's a massive great tailback though here. I've only just got here about a minute ago.
Yeah, okay, Barrett. Now look, I want you on the air telling us what went on. And you're going to get a 3-line cue and then we're on the wireless, okay?
Yeah.
It's real skin-of-your-teeth stuff, this broadcasting, isn't it? And time nor tide wait for the news.
It's Peter 8, Metro News for the North East.
Well, that's a good start. Why don't we just run along the dial and see what we can find? Because most stations put out the news at the same time.
Ships of the British Task Force are at battle stations tonight in the Falklands War Zone. What? The Falklands War Zone, but there have been no reports of any clashes since last night.
Military rulers of Argentina are getting ready to welcome American Secretary of State Alexander Haig on the second leg of his peace mission.
The small South Pacific kingdom of Tonga will crown its monarch tomorrow in a ceremony following the royal traditions of England and the ancient customs, feasting and dancing of Polynesia. King Taufa King Taufa Ahautu Pou, who stands 6 feet 4 and weighs 21 stone, will don his coronation robes and accept the crown.
It's part of a £3.5 million package to help unemployed teenagers in the capital. Neil Fletcher of Ilya told us how the school dole scheme will work.
The remainder of the estate was left to his widow, Mrs. Elaine Steinbeck. John Steinbeck named his widow and his lawyer, Mr. Harry Bookman, as co-executors and directed that they have full power to deal with his literary works and to exploit them advantageously.
The emergency sea rescue services in Cornwall were alerted this morning when a coaster sent out a radio call that it was in danger of drifting onto rocks on the Lizard. The Coast Guards have launched the Lizard lifeboat.
Winds of up to hurricane force have caused havoc throughout the West Country. I can't read that. It's been written by my editor in his own handwriting. I have to move on.
The Pope left Rome 2 hours ago on board an Irish Aer Lingus jumbo jet bearing the name St. Patrick.
The Foreign Secretary, Lord Carrington, will say this morning whether today's session of the London Conference of the Future of Zimbabwe is I beg your pardon.
But first, the accident tonight on the Elston Road, Leicester, in which 4 people were injured and have been taken to hospital. The crash involved 5 vehicles and happened at the junction with Middleton Street and Wigston Lane. Bharat Patel now reports from our radio car.
I've got the mast not up, but just raised, and I can't get it down now.
No, we seem to have difficulty in getting Bharat Patel's report there. We hope to come back to that a little later.
And that, as they say, seems to be where we came in. Now then, who's next? And more importantly, where are you?
And a classified check on today's racing results from Colin Turner.
Starting with the results from Newmarket, the 113.
Well, he was there a moment.
I wonder where he's gone to now.
I'm reliably informed he went that-a-way to cover a different kind of event because of some rather unusual things going on.
Why have you got a red nose?
Lack of sun today, I think, really, and plus I think it was that naughty lady, Dee Dee the clown, who's gone round bonking everybody. Is that the word? Boinging everybody.
The things people get up to these days. On the radio, I mean.
18-year-old Claire told the court that her 27-year-old boyfriend had threatened to kill her after they had a row in a nightclub at My Stag in Mid Glamorgan. She says she pleaded with him that she was 18 months pregnant.
And for some extraordinary reason, he wouldn't believe her. At least until he'd checked out their horoscopes on the wireless. A Libra, I think she was. Certainly not a Virgo.
Now, Libra, oh, poor Libra. Expect a little shock. It won't be a bad shock. You'll be all right. But still, a sudden change in the weather can catch you unawares. You should know the snow is coming again. Never mind. There could be an annoying shortage. So it's not a great week so far for Libra.
It isn't really, is it?
But still, illness will take the fun out of life. I don't mean it as badly as that, but I'm afraid it is a bit of a poorly week for some Libran people. Look after your throats, all right? Wrap up warm if you're going out. A bargain? Oh, dear. A bargain turns out to be a rotten deal for Libran people.
Oh, we shouldn't laugh. This is awful.
I know. And listen, this is even better. The family could be making plans behind your back. I'm sorry. Everything's going wrong for Libra. Oh, dear. Never mind. You could just trust someone who wants to help you. Oh, dear. Try not to moralise.
I've never known you like this.
Nor have I. But then astrologists tend to be much the same as weather forecasters, even down to having the same name.
Indeed, Dick, and from one Dick to another. At the East Midlands Weather Centre this evening, it's a good evening to Dick Porter. Hello, Dick.
Hello, Matthew. Weather forecast, frost and fog at, beg your pardon, frost and fog at first, but dry with sunshine later in the day. It's 4 minutes past 6.
With organisations muscling in on sponsoring things like the weather, we may see some more imaginative styles developing, with sound effects.
16 Celsius, 61 Fahrenheit, little change overnight, and on Friday, still remaining, beg your pardon, still mostly cloudy with rain or showers.
What one might call a thundercast. Wonder what he'd do for rain or showers. The mind boggles. Still, I understand things are going to brighten up tomorrow.
And that's the news now, Graham.
Thank you, Delaney. The weather, showers in the east will die away to give a cloudy night. Tomorrow will be sunny with showers again in the east.
Some folk need to take more notice of the weather forecasts than others. Fishing people and those on the move, too.
Cars on elevated sections of the motorway might be buffeted by 50-mile-an-hour 50-mile-an-hour winds.
I understand they don't use seaweed anymore at the weather centres. They've got a new way of telling which way the wind's blowing.
Goats, they're influenced by wind. And if the greys with their heads in the wind, that means we're going to get a fine day. Hold on, it's coming. They're influenced by wind. And if the greys with their heads in the wind, that means we're going to get a fine day. No, it's not. And goats, they're influenced by wind, and if it grazes with its head in the wind... Oh, God. Right, it's coming.
Modern radio stations don't only rely on proper weather centres, they sometimes use sponsored helicopters to see what's on the horizon.
Bright during the day, but with some overnight fog and frost.
So it's not going to be too bad then. I mean, will we be able to get our chopper up tomorrow? That's the main thing we're worried about.
Aren't we all? Some of us. And if you can't afford a helicopter, you can always pretend by digging out a sound effects record and beating your chest.
Traffic news on 194.
Well, traffic has been very light today, so I've taken advantage of the police helicopter, and I can in fact tell you that although it's flowing very, very smoothly, on the whole there are no hold-ups, but watch out for roadworks on the M4 between Tormarton and Hambrook, and also on the M5 around Tort, but elsewhere around the area. Traffic is flowing very smoothly, awfully high up here, beginning to feel a little queasy.
Very good. Did you believe that? Eh? Did you? Neither did I. Helicopter?
And after that, they decided to rely on the police, though Lord knows why.
Time to go over live to Cheltenham Police Headquarters now for the crime call. And there waiting for us is,
Ooh, keep guessing.
It's Mike Pennington.
Correct.
Even if the traffic person is there, there's no guarantee it'll be straightforward. Depends what went out just before.
A report from Bristol Zoo on the sexing of seagulls. Well, now over to the police for traffic news.
Yes. Yes. Good morning, Roger. Thank you. Motorists coming into the city of Bristol via the Three Lamps junction.
All caused by sexing seagulls. Why is it that animals and birds always cause such chaos on the radio? There must be some way of preventing it. A society or something.
The time now 20 minutes past 7. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds marks its centenary with a new campaign launched today, Action for Birds. Well, with me, the president of the RSPB, Magnus Magnusson. First of all, which species are under most attack, would you say?
Before I do that, could I correct that very interesting Freudian slip you made? It's not the Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds.
Oh, protection.
It's the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds.
One way of preventing birds happens every August on the glorious 12th, the first day of the grouse shooting season.
AM on the glorious 12th, August the 12th, 1989. Now, out in the sticks this very morning, something stirred. Well, I'm sure it didn't sound quite like that. They're not actually allowed to use automatic weaponry against them. Rural sport, if you like that type of thing. The fox. I'm so sorry. The idea of a machine gun to introduce what we're going to talk about was the best our sound effects department could come up with. Now, the fox, unless you happen to be very hungry indeed, is widely regarded as inedible. Those who pursue it are, in one school of thought, unspeakable. Now, the same perhaps might be said for those who paid handsomely for the privilege of taking aim at the innocent grouse this morning. On the grouse moors of England, the shooting parties are already stalking their harmless and ultimately delicious quarries. What stands between them and a good day's shoot will not be the efforts of the anti-blood sport brigade, but the insidious effects of the trichostongyle worm. I know it sounds funny, but it isn't.
I beg to disagree. Another way of coping with birds is to see they get a lot less airtime, using fair means, or foul.
Early birds have been up since dawn this morning in a concerted eavesdrop of our feathered friends. Here's David Hughes.
So for the rest of us who are enjoying our Sunday morning lie-in, there's always tomorrow.
Oh, that's the briefest report I've ever introduced on a news bulletin. No doubt he was enjoying himself.
There's so many different ways of enjoying yourself these days.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your question for James Alcock?
Well, I've hesitated to bring it on the air. I've had this bird, in the beginning of June, and it was 5 weeks old.
Yeah. Well, what, Budgie?
Yes.
Yes.
And he's absolutely marvellously tame and everything, and he lives free in the room. And there's a tree trunk there he actually lives on, and there's a mirror and a little ball like a lobster ball. Well, he hangs on these two and sits on the top of the tree trunk, and he masturbates. And I presume it is masturbating. He hugs this little ball and puts his wings all round it, and he goes mad on top of this tree trunk. And I wondered if it's all right, or if I should remove these toys.
Hi, Mrs. Clark. Well, thank you for your question. Is Mrs. Clark right in her diagnosis, James?
Yes, I'm sure she is. Is it all right? I don't think it'll do the bird any harm. He won't go blind or anything.
But on the other hand, pigs might fly, or even swim.
A swimming pig. A swimming pig from Houston has received a top award for bravery. 7-month-old Priscilla the pig rescued an 11-year-old boy from drowning. Ah, well, the weather for swimming pigs today, mostly cloudy, dry with some spots of rain. Tonight, staying cloudy, but generally mild. Views and weather will be safe.
I suppose a swimming pig is marginally easier to cope with than a dog that can do arithmetic, given the right sum.
Oh, shush, just a minute. Wait until the sum's ready.
3, 5...
Just wait. Wait.
Say 5 plus 3.
5 plus 3. That wasn't really terribly well done. She's not excited enough
That was
yet.
a trial run.
Yes.
So let's assume that we can get into a simple
Just a
exercise.
minute, right, we're really starting now. Just wait. It's too exciting now. Right?
I'll give you the floor.
Right. Frida. No, just wait for the sum. 3. Listen. Listen. 3 and... There now, isn't that a clever girl?
Clever? A chimpanzee could have done better, with a few bananas and a following wind.
Well, she'll stay with Mum for at least a year, and then it's possible that we shall remove her and choppers will be mated again, because in the ordinary way, in the wild, someone's very jealous. She says, why is the other chimp getting all the attention? Well, that's what you think of a baby. Yes. We do remove the baby so that we can get her tame, and then she will join the group of young chimps with the other 2 that have been born this year up in our new chimp complex.
I don't think I can do this interview like this.
Which somehow reminds me...
Goats. Goats. You're as bad as I am. Goats.
Maybe if we turn to something completely different, we could get right away from our four-legged enemies. How about sport? Motorsport.
We've had some great Danes in British Speedway. Hans Nielsen, arguably the leading one at the moment, with Eric Gunderson.
There's no escape, is there?
Our little dog's wandered onto the park. Troy Kay lays the ball down to this near side. Busby goes for it. The linesman drawing the attention of the referee to the dog. And the dog looks all round, and of course, as dogs always do at football parks, it starts waiting till someone goes up to take it, and then it dodges away.
And Roller Kyle actually put his hand in his breast pocket. I thought he was going to book the dog for a minute.
Look for a piece of sugar or something, maybe.
I thought it was horses that ate sugar.
And goats, they're influenced by wind, and if it grazes with its Oh, God.
I'm Jonathan Hewat, and if you work in the broadcasting world, do send me a copy of that dusty tape of bloopers you've got lying about somewhere. If they're worth keeping, they're worth putting in the blooper archives for posterity. And many thanks to those already received. Now, where were we?
Goats. Goats. Funny about goats. Nothing's funny about goats.
No more than there is working with children, though I know which most broadcasters would prefer any day.
Goats?
Well, I, for one, definitely prefer children.
You think I ought to try, girls of mine? Yes! You think I ought to show Mr. Punch? Yes! Can't hear you! Yes! Still can't hear you!
And that's almost it for this side, though there's loads more goodies for you on side 2. Things like sport and music, and no goats. Before we close, let me offer you something of a classic moment which almost produced a gigantic clangor. Picture the scene. A live radio studio right at the end of the show. An evil colleague has rigged up the presenter's headphones so he can talk into them, but what he says doesn't go out on air, just into the presenter's ears. The moment is the final, very fast rundown of the top 20, and there's rather more faces peering expectantly through the glass into the studio. Remember, the comments into the headphones which we can hear didn't go out on the airwaves.
Dave? Yeah? Dave, I've got a funny feeling. Yeah? That something's about to happen. Greetings, pop pickers. Right, here it is, the brand new BBC Top 30. This week, 3 new ones. New at number 30, Living in Harmony from Cliff Richard. New at this week's number 29, Where is the Love from Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway. Down at 28, Circles from the New Seekers. Down at 27 this week, Working on a Building of Love from Chairman of the Board. Down at 26 is Sylvia's Mother, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show. Wowee. Up 2 places, number 25, Lean on Me from Bill Withers. Up to 24 is Journey from Duncan Brown. Out of last week's top 20, number 23 this week, Rock and Roll Part 2, Gary Glitter. Up 2 places, number 22 is Conquistador from Procol Harum. And up 1 place this week, that's number 21 in the top 30. And that is, Busy Thinking About My Baby from Mardi Gras. Right.
that.
And he made it right through to the end of the programme, no thanks to his colleagues. Marvellous stuff. More bloopers on side 2. Hello and welcome to another burst of those moments on the radio when the professionals got things momentarily just a teeny bit wrong.
Occupation?
Journalist and broadcaster.
Place of birth?
Lewis.
You have 30 seconds on the Lewis Trivia Quiz Book starting from now. Where is the only lake in Lewis?
I don't know.
The tough ones first, eh?
You're listening to BBC Local Radio serving Mid and North East Lancashire, broadcasting on 351 metres, that's 351 metres in the medium wave and 96.4 VHF. It's 5 minutes past 4. 5 minutes past 12.
Well, whatever the time, there's a good half hour of classic broadcasting bloopers heading straight for you.
Right.
But, can I...
Ah, well, that's all the water on the floor now. That's, as you heard, the Radio Leicester glass is now broken, so we're back to the old tin mug again.
And I always thought broadcasters drank their gin out of large metal waste paper buckets.
Why do you think the boat people are leaving the country in such large numbers? Are they dissatisfied with the... Sorry, we've got a bit of... Are you still there?
Yes, I'm
Fine.
sorry. I kicked... Someone's left a bucket under the
Oh,
table.
right.
I kicked the bucket.
The truth will out, though some still try to make us believe they're waste paper bins.
Walt Disney is still a favourite with children. It's a waste paper bin.
What the broadcasters call a non-returnable empty.
British Nuclear Fuels, who operate the Windscale atomic plant in Cumbria, have been fined £500 for a breach of the safe working regulations. The company appeared before magistrates in Whitehaven today, following an incident in which a worker received an X-ray burn. The counsel for the British Nuclear Fuels stressed at the court that the incident had nothing to do with any nuclear leak. Britain's largest manufacturing company, ICI, has announced a big drop in profits last year. And that's our look at the news. The next news here at 6 o'clock.
It's odd how often things on the radio speak for themselves, isn't it?
It's necessary to bring such equipment as syringes and needles with the traveller. And condoms obviously speak for themselves.
Do they?
They might do if you chose the right day to get married.
The couple later split, and Mandy Smith's modelling career rocketed. Now she and the former Rolling Stone are back together and are planning a June weather.
And I'm told they immediately booked Mick Jagger to play at the reception, along with a musician from Scotland. Technically speaking, a broadcaster has to be very careful what she chooses to go in her programme, like what kind of things to follow a live interview with some German guests, for example.
So all in all, then, Knut, you think it's been well worth all the time and effort that's been
Definitely,
used?
definitely. Would like to come back.
Well-
Would like to meet many people from Leicestershire in the Saarland.
Until we meet again, thank you very much for coming
Thank you,
in.
Sue.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Whatever age you are, the Second World War is recent enough to be in many of your friends' and relatives' memories, if not your own. Perhaps your school was bombed during the war or your home damaged. Well, Leicester at War, a photographic exhibition, could well be of interest to you.
And everyone else in the studio. It might have been better if the tape machine had refused to work.
An investigating magistrate has been appointed, but it may be some time before the case comes to court. This report now from Sophie Decker. And we'll have to bring you that report later. 20 soccer fans are being questioned by police trying to find out how a man fell overboard from a North Sea ferry. The Tor Britannia turned back to Harwich, where it was met by police after fighting broke out during a voyage to Sweden. Michael O'Neill reports. A report out today says that thousands of British jobs are under threat because European companies are taking over more and more council services. The Association of London Authorities says the Spanish and French are snapping up contracts put out to competitive tender, and more continental countries are moving in. Authorities in Sheffield, York, Rochdale and Southampton say the Continentals have shown a keen interest in running some services. This report now from Clive Murray. We seem to be having some difficulty with these reports, and we'll bring this on to you as soon as possible. Muslim leaders around the country have condemned the bombing of a top London store in which a woman was seriously injured. The department store, Liberty's, is open for business as usual today, despite the bomb attack outside a window display of books. It's believed Muslim extremists are responsible for planting the bomb. The police had received a phone warning just before the explosion in which the controversial author Salman Rushdie was mentioned. And now let's see if we can go back to that story about the Euro jobs. Clive Murray reporting. Well, we are having some problem with our reporting tonight.
Oh, nothing you'd notice. Unless you'd been listening. You do need to listen to get the best out of your radio.
Well, I've got a sign at the bottom of the road saying residents only parking. I said they must be illegitimate. They can't read or something. They just ignore it.
And if people don't have a parking permit, it's quite straightforward. They're not illegible to park there. Still, confrontations at the bottom of an English country lane are small beer compared to the things that happen on American farms.
If the strike isn't successful in getting farm prices up, Knut Friedal says he'll be looking for another job in a year. And that will mean the end of farming for a fourth. Knut Friedal says he'll be looking for another job in another year. That would mean the end of farming for a fourth. Knut Friedal says he'll be looking for another job in another year.
Sounds like he tried eating some of that free-range farm-fresh food, and it didn't agree with him.
If the strike is not successful and farm prices don't go up, he'll have to look for another job. And that will mean the end of farming for a fourth-generation American farm family.
And we all know being on strike is no picnic, even for a farm family.
It also appears that sympathetic unions will not cross picnic lines.
Unless the local council decides to get involved.
Now it's 7 minutes past 6 o'clock. And to farming. And once again, the county council's small holdings in Somerset are under the spotlight. The council are considering selling the farmers. The farms.
Some radio news stories start off full of potential, but then run out of steam, or whatever.
2 Bristol hot air balloonists have broken the British women's long-distance record. The pair set off from Ashton Court this morning and beat the previous record of 101 miles. They landed this afternoon near Lowestoft, and one of the pilots, Maria Roach, says it was a perfect trouble-free flight.
Conditions were great. I mean, we took off and it was very clear and nice in Ashton Court this morning.
Oh dear, we're having technical problems.
Never mind. We'll move on to something safe, like the good old, utterly reliable phone-in.
Daphne in Wimbledon is on the line. Go ahead, Daphne. Let's move to Harry in Shepherd's Bush. I think a point about disarmament, Harry. Hello, Harry? Have we got Harry there?
Pardon?
No, it's Pat, is it?
No, sorry, you must have the wrong number.
Oh, goodness me. These things happen. Well, the telephone system doesn't always work.
That's right. Blame them. Still, there's bound to be some poor soul hanging on, waiting for the world to hear what she's got to offer.
And our next caller is Mrs. Panchard. Yes. Hello, Mrs. Panchard.
Yes, me.
And what would you like to say?
I've forgotten now. I've gone so long.
Oh.
I told the young lady, and I told a gentleman too. I don't know who he was.
Ah, sorry about that. OK, well, perhaps it'll come back to you. Who's our next caller?
I told you what I have.
Mrs. Oliver. Hello, Mrs. Oliver.
Hello.
Once the public do get on the airwaves, they don't seem to mind what they say. It's almost like they forget there's thousands listening.
The way I play devil's advocate on behalf of British Rails, quite often, you're talking about a train with a corridor through it. Quite often, of course, it's impossible to get...
Can you... Just a moment. Just a moment, please. I'm on the phone.
More than on the phone, you're on the radio.
Still, she's not alone.
I had to go out to the local church. I was really very upset. Sorry, Mother, I'm on the radio. I beg your pardon.
That's quite all right, John.
And she was only asking if he wanted a nice cuppa. After all, there's lots more important things than being on the radio.
Well, at that point, we'll bring in our next caller, who's calling from Lanark, Wallace Anderson. Good evening.
Well, the kettle's just boiled.
Oh, dear, I am sorry.
He's not. And anyway, it's always the people working behind the scenes who have to cope with the problems, whatever they are.
Oh, I haven't got a dial on this. I'm not getting a dialing tone on my phone. Can somebody tell me why I'm not getting a dialing tone on this phone? I shall press the number regardless. but I certainly haven't got a dialing tone. We did pay the bill, did we, during the summer? I'll tell you something about Mike King while we're waiting for people who are sweating slightly more than I am to sort it out. Huh? They're going to dial it from upstairs? Want me to give you the number? Mike King. got a wife called Jennifer. We're dialing. They're dialing it from upstairs. They've got it. Do they want me to press the button on the top? Somebody upstairs has just increased our deodorant bill. I can't read out the number because every idiot in the world will be phoning it. Well, he'll have to change his number. Oh, I just heard a click on the line. No, the number... I've now got a line, right. But this phone is not working. No, it's not working. You take the card. Don't be so timid. And now I can't tell you all about Mike King because all the details are written down on that card.
The world of broadcasting sounds so desperately complicated. Small wonder the real professionals can't always cope.
It really can be very difficult. It's 24 minutes now before 11. You've never heard this before because it's never been broadcast before. It's a track from an album that's going to come out in February, and it's by Crocus. Its title is She's Got Everything. Well, if that was Crocus, I eat gladioli for breakfast. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a mix-up with our tape machines there. Sorry about that. And now we will rock you with Crocus, and this really is She's Got Everything.
Musically speaking, I think I'd rather have those two who keep on causing all that trouble over at Bridgewater.
Simon and Garfunkel's greatest hits in at number 32 in the Caroline all-time top 100 LPs.
There's some who'd find all that far too modern, too, what's the word, samey. Others love it, though, and inevitably there's one or two whose opinions seem to oscillate back and forth.
What do you think of the present-day music,
Well, some of it's great, mate. I mean, some of it's great. Great.
What do you particularly like?
You got me there because there is one thing I will say about today's music. It's very samey. You know, it goes on. It's very samey, and I think this is because most of it is electronic.
Of course, if you don't happen to like electronic music, you can always embrace the world of opera. There's so many really famous ones that might suit your particular tastes.
Before that, there's part of Dildo and Aeneas.
And if you happen to be a jazz buff, you're probably one of those people who can reel off the names of some of the most obscure artists, as well as the jazz greats.
This program of ultra-modern rhythm comes to you from the Savoy Ballroom, known as the home of Happy Feet, located in uptown New York City. Besides the music of Count Basie, the singing of Willie Holiday and James Rushing...
There's no doubt getting muddled over Billy and Willie isn't the sort of problem broadcasters tend to have when they come across a William.
Nancy, thanks very much for coming on this morning, and get well soon.
Yes, thank you.
There we are, Nancy Thorne on the telephone this morning talking about son's Willie and how proud she is of his snooker playing.
And without even the hint of a reference to things like snooker cues or all the other bits of equipment, we'll escape the claustrophobic atmosphere of a live studio and go for a couple of lungfuls on an outside broadcast.
Sound of the Beach Boys and I Get Around. Well, John Florence and I certainly get around on Tony Takes Off. We've taken off in fine style this morning to the home of the Duke of Rutland, Belvoir Castle. Imagine the rates you'd have to pay on a place like this.
Isn't bear thinking about, does it really?
Crikey. Well, I tell you what, let's make our way towards that rather imposing front door, because I suspect they may have an inkling that we're here.
I think that's the biggest front door of any residence I've ever seen, Tony. It's absolutely huge,
The size of the knocker on it as well.
Indeed. I've seen some big knockers in my time, but that just about takes the biscuit.
I suppose, as we're already out and about, if we were to go a bit further afield, we'd be okay. Though not too far off the beaten track.
John, did you know that today is the last day for sending Christmas air parcels and packets to a whole list of different countries around the world?
Well, funny you should say that, Kay, but I've got the names of all 43 in front of me.
You start reading, I'll help you out.
OK, then let's go. Australia, Cameroon, Caroline Islands, Central African Republic.
Chad, Chile, Christmas Islands, Cocos Islands, Comoros and Congo.
East Timor, French Polynesia, Guinea, Kiribati, Laos, Macau and Madagascar.
Mariana Islands, Marshall Islands, Mongolia, Nora Islands, New Caledonia, New Zealand and Niger.
Norfolk Island, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Philippines, Pitcairn Island, Reunion and Samoa.
The Seychelles, Solomon Islands, Taiwan and Thailand.
Toga, Tonga, Tuvalu.
I have a feeling it's somewhere near that place in Central Europe. You know.
One of those obscure Magyar countries between Czechoslovakia and Yugoslovakia.
Or maybe it was one of those very hot places in the Caribbean. It's so easy to get confused if you're a correspondent, always on the move.
John Osman, BBC, Moscow. Oh dear. John Osman, BBC, Kingston.
Clyde Small, BBC, Moscow. Washington, sorry, wherever I am.
Paul Reynolds, BBC, New York. Paul Reynolds, BBC, Washington.
Angus McDermott, BBC, at the... Sorry, skip the payoff. Don't know where I am.
Pat O'Brien, Channel 2 News. Where am I? Where are we, seriously? Pleasantville? No. No, not. What's the name of this place?
John Simpson, BBC, wherever the hell I am. Sorry, I'll do that again. John Simpson, BBC, Blessington.
Well, somebody's got to cover stories from Blessington, but getting things absolutely right takes time, as they say.
Do you think you'll be able to succeed in your objective?
That's on the laps of the gods.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell?
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
And that precious commodity, time, is nearly always in desperately short supply, especially whenever anything a bit dramatic crops up.
There were two Europeans, as it's put here, who indeed overcame the rebels guarding Lady Tiwara at the medical research compound and managed to get her out. But who these two Europeans were, I just don't know.
There have been suggestions...
Excuse me, somebody's knocked on the door. Thank you very much. I'll have to go. We've got a car here. The hostages have just been liberated, and they're going to take us in the car down there. I'm just able to tell you now that the hostages have been liberated. The rest of the hostages out at Dachau. I'm about to go out there to see them. As far as we know, everyone is safe. I'm unable to report on the military activity. They've gone without us. They've gone without us. Eh? They've gone, have they? We'll get some other transport. Okay, that's it, Julie. I'm sorry, I'm putting the phone down on you, or we'll miss the whole story. Bye.
And if we do miss that, there's bound to be a repeat of one kind or another. There's so many repeats these days.
Tune into Ocean Sound and listen to those car registration numbers being read out. And if you do miss them, don't forget there's a full recap. Oh dear, I do beg your pardon. There's a full recap.
That's the word.
Virginia creeper. And the Virginia creeper has gradually crept
into the crypt, I believe, and then out again and all over the north wall.
Well, all sorts of things are worth trying on a north-facing wall. The north wall of my house, which faces north, has climbing Ina Harkness on it.
The north wall of my house, which is north-facing.
And if that happens, there's only one kind of product to use.
You could use fibre pots, you could use biodegradable pots, you could use biodegradable pots.
You couldn't say it.
But you couldn't say it.
Talking of which...
John, did you know that today is the last day for sending Christmas air parcels and packets to a whole list of different countries?
Just one of the endless problems that can leap out at you from nowhere, and in some cases grab you by the throat.
The Economic and Social Research Council hand out money to postgraduates, but recently a quarter of the students who've received grants have failed to complete their work within 4 years.
David, go and have a glass of water. We all understand. Poor David's voice has gone. We're going to come back to him for more news later in the programme.
One way out of that kind of jam would be to get hold of a real postgraduate student. Any old one. There's lots of them about. From abroad, too.
I have with me now an international student. You come from where?
I ain't international. I come from Southall.
You come from?
Southall, London.
That's foreign enough for me. I'm told it's one of those places you have to post early to for Christmas.
John, did you know that today is the last day for sending Christmas air parcels and packets to a whole list of different countries around the world?
Funny you should say that, Kay, but I've got the names of all 43 in front of me.
Wasn't that strange?
Nothing like as strange as opening a social club for railway workers and then restricting it to a small group of shunters. And wheel tappers, of course.
What is it, the wheel tappers what?
It's a social club for wheel tappers and shunters. Off you go.
Then this trio of funny men turned up in the wheel tappers, shunters and social club.
No, wheel tappers and shunters social club.
Then this trio of funny men turned up in the wheel tappers and social shunters club.
No.
Well, what is it then?
Wheel tappers and shunters social club. It's really quite straightforward when you stop and think about it.
Wheel tappers and social shunters club. Wheel tappers and shunters social club. Okay, I've got it. Let's do it once more. Bloody thing. I'm glad that series didn't last that long. Right, here we go then. Ready? Then this trio of funny men turned up in the wheel tappers and social shunters club. Well, what is it?
It's the wheel tappers and shunters social club. Okay?
All right. Wheel tappers and shunters social... Wheel tappers and shunters social club. Is that right?
Yep, it sure is.
Well, okay. Then this trio of funny men... I can't say it now. Okay, let's go. Then this trio of funny men turned up in the wheel tappers and social shunters club.
Look, you have a practice and we'll go off to the live on-air studios where there's absolutely no messing about getting it right.
Enjoy yourself there, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Oh, where are we? Oh, yes. You're trying to put the record on without actually putting it on the turntable. Doesn't help, does it? What about a bit of Yahoo?
Quick thinking there. But then you have to be when you're stuck in a live studio with a complicated script introducing your next guest.
Well, it's 10 to 8 here on AM. Now, deep beneath the earth, under Geneva, right now, a strange and exorbitantly expensive scientific experiment is already underway. It is costing the British taxpayer £40 million a year. It's a buried circular tunnel, 17 miles long, called the Electron-Positron Collider, an atom smasher in layman's crude parlance, designed to help scientists the world over understand the most profound questions of astrophysics and cosmology. It's already taken 6 years to build the thing and cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Man's quest to learn the mysteries of life goes on, kicking up perhaps more questions than answers. One man who studied the theories behind the atom smasher and catalogued the extraordinary history and evolution of scientific quest is Timothy Ferris, an American professor at the University of Berkeley, California, whose latest book, The Coming of Age in the Milky Way, has just been published. He's with us now, rather breathlessly, having run down our stairs.
I'm not.
In that case, it must be Richard Bath. Forgive me.
Breathing heavily.
The title of your book, The Coming of Age in the Milky Way... Well, never mind. We have somebody deep breathing in the studio, but we haven't yet discovered the source of it. The Coming of Age in the I'm sorry?
It's not my book.
It's not your book?
No, they've got the wrong person for you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Who have we got with us this morning? Now, this is very odd. It's obviously something to do with the Glorious 12th.
No, it's not. It's not to do with the Glorious 12th. It's just you've got me, but I think for something later.
Well, well, in that case, tell us who you are.
I'm Tom Burke.
Of course you are. I didn't recognize you in the shirt, Tom.
That's all right.
How nice to see you. Well, we were... That, ladies and gentlemen listening at home, is one of the hazards of live radio.
As is just about everything on these tapes. And in case you'd forgotten, this is Bloopers Volume 5.
Some boxing news, and commentary middleweight Errol Christie has changed his trainer for Wednesday's British Championship eliminator against Tony Burke at the Alexandra Pavilion. Christie claimed today that his corner became overexcited during his fight against Mark Kaler.
The exciting world of sports radio.
Oh, it's 8:16. We're still waiting for a fight. Oh, there he is. We're in business. I think... Oh, no, he's gone away. Hello.
Hello, is that Jim?
Hello, Richard.
No, it's not Richard, it's Simon. Richard's just doing his half-time report. He'll be with you in a sec, okay?
All right, can you...
At half-time, here he comes.
Oh, good.
Hello, Jim.
Hello, exciting radio, this.
Hey?
Hello, Richard, you're on.
Hey.
Is he still there? Let's try. Oh, no, please. Let's try this again. Manchester United versus Luton Town at Old Trafford. From Old Trafford, Richard Keys. Oh, no. He's gone away. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do something else.
But what? Anything'll do, as long as it's not silence. Broadcasters hate gaps, unless it's Radio 3, and silence makes them very nervous.
Well, good evening then from Pittodrie Stadium in Aberdeen. It's eyes down for this European Champions Cup quarter-final, first leg, Aberdeen against IFK Gothenburg, and a minute's silence on the pitch. Not clear exactly what that minute's silence was about.
I'm told it was for a heavy smoker, a footballer.
Two who played for Newcastle United during those famous cup finals of the 1950s and were delighted to hear the referee's whistle at half-time so they could go in and light up in the Wembley dressing room. It is different now, of course. You never, ever see a professional smoker playing football.
One of the great truths of broadcasting sport.
Palmer picking that ball up for Wolves and bringing the ball forward. And Palmer holding the ball and playing it square, and not a good ball to McCall. And McCall playing it forward with his left ball, looking for John Richards.
It's always reassuring to know that the people on the wireless know what they're talking about. Real experts they are.
Michael Holding's also fit to play. England has won loss and bat. It's 6 minutes past 4. I don't really know what that means.
Yes, you don't know what you're talking about there with cricket, do you?
What is loss and bat?
They've won the toss and they've decided to bat.
Most sports people tend to gravitate towards pure gibberish at some time in their lives, sometimes unwittingly.
Now on to another tale of disaster, this time racing. Now, there have been no meetings for 6 days and not much in prospect, it would seem. So what does our racing correspondent John Penny think about all that?
Well, the thing is that there is so much.
Hang on a second.
Not a great deal by the sounds of it.
Hang on. He's having a spot of trouble down there. We'll ask him again in a minute. It's slowing down. He's heading for the final post ahead of schedule. Here we go again.
Well, the thing is that, Pat, there is so much snow and ice about. In fact, there's no race, you see.
That's one of the things I like best about sport on the radio. It's full of the most unexpected problems.
Looking at the problems for McPherson, for anybody who's just listening for the first time and hearing that McPherson has got problems, could you explain what those injury problems are?
Well, it's a bit out of my... you'd probably be better be speaking to Dennis Casey, but he has had problems with it. He's got a lump down the inside of his groin, which is about 3 or 4 inches long, and it's hardened up. And the average supporter probably not see any difference in his performance, but we've been looking at it more closely than we have.
Makes every other kind of problem seem a mere trifle. But never mind, something tells me we might be able to check out that social club by now. What was it? Wheel tappers and shunters?
Social club, right, it again. Then this trio of funny men turned up in the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club.
Great. I knew it was a good idea to go away and then come back. We can go for a take now. A proper take.
Well, if you want me to do it again, I'll do it. Okay. Wheel Tappers and Social...
And that, sadly, is where we've got to leave it for another year. Almost. Do please spread the word about the tapes. All 5 volumes are available, and you can only get them by mail order. The address is on the cassette box and also on side 1. So if you know someone who enjoys a good chuckle and who's interested in radio, don't lend them a tape. Have us send them a leaflet on your behalf. Or, better still, give them a gift of a set of them. It doesn't have to be a special occasion. In the meantime, I look forward to our next meeting on Volume 6, or possibly on the Good Humour channel on British Airways, weather permitting.
2 planes at Gatwick Airport to tell you of delays with, if you understand what I mean by that. The BR354 from Freetown and Banjul will be arriving at 7:10, that's nearly 2 hours late. And the BR258 from Dallas and St. Louis will arrive at 12 o'clock today, and that again is about 2 or 3 hours late. So 2 delays at Gatwick Airport. Apart from that, trains in and out going on time. Planes rather going in and out on time. silly running trains from Gatwick Airport. Well, you can get a train from Gatwick Airport, but it would only go to London. Wouldn't go to Freetown or Banjul, which could be something of a disappointment in the circumstances, depending on where you wanted to go to. Why don't I shut up?
Please don't. From Wireless for the Blind and myself, a warm thank you to all those who inadvertently find themselves featuring, sometimes more than once, on the blooper tapes. It's only in stark contrast to the sheer professionalism of the norm that these fluffs and gaffes become so deliciously human. So, from all of us on the blooper team, from the independent radio people, the community radio people, the hospital radio people, the pirate radio people,
and from the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Cheerio.
Okay, that's just a touch of Siona dancing to finish off. I'll be here on Sunday afternoon. Oh, it's not going to work. My closer is not going to work. What a shame. It's going to be so dynamic and everything. Hang on. No, it's not going to work. I'll be here on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock.